Hey guys, what's up, and welcome to Real Time, where we are live talking about film and television and everything in between. And today, in my opinion, I'm going to be going over the best trilogies ever in cinema history. Let's check it out. Hey guys, what's up? Mustafa Thadab here with Cinema King Productions, and thank you all so much for tuning in on Real Time. I'm very excited about today's episode because this is something I wanted to share with you guys. And actually, before we begin, I want to ask y'all something. What is y'all's favorite trilogy in movie making of all time, or in cinema? Let me know in the live chat or in the comments down below. I'd really love to hear y'all's input about that. So yeah, this is something I kind of thought up of recently as I was planning out this week's live streams, just to see, hey, you know what, this is what we're here for. This is what Real Time is about. It's to talk about movies and our love as a community about movies, and which one did we like, which one did we not like, and why, and this and that, and we can get into nitty-gritty stuff like that. Make this a community effort, conversation, important topics to discuss, that are featured in film and things of that sort. So yeah, if y'all have any questions, comments, or just want to say what's up, let me know in the live chat on the side. I'll be checking them out, and as we discuss my favorite trilogies of all time in cinema. These are not in any particular order. Let me disclaim that. I was going to go through and do that, but I just decided, hey, what the heck? Let me just talk about them as they come along. So, the first one I want to talk about, which I think is a classic, and it really was redefining a redefining moment, I guess, in cinema history. Rush Hour. Absolutely, yes, with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, starting from 1998, the first Rush Hour movie. From what I understand, it was pretty much on the brink of not happening, but the director, I think, got a hold of Steven Spielberg to greenlight it. I think that's not 100%. I don't know if that's 100% true or not. Correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I understand in the behind the scenes, in terms of making this film happen, it was not going to be greenlit. But then he had a meeting with Steven Spielberg, and he thought it was a great idea, and said, yeah, let's do it. And what is redefining about Rush Hour, first of all, being absolutely hilarious, right? You have Chris Tucker, great actor, comedian, and then you have one of the most famous Chinese actors ever in martial arts as well, besides Bruce Lee. You have Jackie Chan, of our more contemporary times. But man, what a great duo, and what a great story to bring the two cultures together, right? The tagline is the fastest hands in the East meets the fastest mouth in the West. And it's so funny. It's so good. But what made this movie so unique was that it was not your typical, as we are taught in film school, the white patriarch template of a storyline where you have a white male lead, a damsel in distress, and the other as the bad guy, and then you have the helper, magic man, being from the black community. This was completely different. Instead, it's a black and Asian lead, and partnering up to make the mission successful, and the bad guys were within the obviously there was the other bad guy, the actual bad guys, but then the plot is the twist is that the consul, the British consul, was the mastermind behind the operation the whole time. It's just a phenomenal story. And then that was in 1998. After that came Rush Hour 2 in 2001. They expanded the story a little bit, and it was bigger, it was grander, a lot funnier. Actually, no, I take that back. Sorry. Rush Hour 1 is my favorite of the trilogy. Just hands down, I think. It was just an original story. It was so heartwarming and funny and loving, and it was great. And then number 2, again, like most sequels, it's always bigger action and bigger this, bigger that, but then the story was a little bit lacking. So that was in there as well. If it followed that typical trend. And then number 3, I think they kind of pulled it back around being bigger and better, but the story was a little more solid, I think. And from what I understand, I think, and I believe, based on a photo from Chris Tucker with Jackie Chan holding up the number 4 together, possibly that they are doing a Rush Hour 4 as well. Allahu Alam. I don't know. But that is very exciting, and I will definitely be wanting to watch that when that comes out. I'm very excited. Again, Rush Hour is one of my favorite trilogies because of its originality. It hit certain marks, it hit certain points. The humor was great, the action was amazing, the choreography. It just landed properly. It was just it was warm, a father getting his daughter back. It was just great, and there was honor and shame and all these colliding emotions, and it was good. And then on top of that, you have the humor from Chris Tucker. It was just amazing. Moving on to the next one of the best, I believe, trilogies of all time in cinema, for sure, hands down. I know some people are gonna argue this. The Dark Knight Trilogy, Christopher Nolan's take on Batman. And what's very interesting about these films is that it wasn't approached as, oh, let's just do another Batman film. No, what it was approached as was, let's have Chris Nolan make a Batman film. So it was the respect and the integrity of Chris Nolan as a filmmaker, with his talent, with his team, putting together a Batman film. And, Batman Begins truly demonstrated that as, in the original story, as an original story. And it was realistic. It was stylized realism, and it was just beautiful. It was well executed, and then, left with the cliffhanger of, right at the end of the movie, Commissioner Gordon, played by Gary Oldman, gave Christian Bale, Batman, Bruce Wayne, the evidence bag with none other than Joker's card, his calling card. So it was a tease, like, oh, maybe we might do a film, a sequel, maybe we won't. But they definitely did, and that blew dark thematic films out of the water. Like, it was so deep and just amazing how The Dark Knight was just fantastic, a phenomenal film. One of my favorite films of all time, period. But still, like, as part of the trilogy, as part of the franchise, it was just amazing as a film. I mean, these guys came out, the Dark Knight trilogy, it was Batman Begins in 2005, and then 2008, I was just graduating high school when The Dark Knight came out, and then in 2012, when Dark Knight Rises came out, with the antagonist Bane, played by Tom Hardy. Another great film. I was not particularly a huge fan. I mean, given that it did come out at a certain time in our history where the political climate was also edgy, and so it did make a lot of connections to that. And that's something I like about Chris Nolan's films, is that whenever he's writing a piece, it is relatable to the times that we are living in. It's not like, this idealistic or fantasy kind of thing. It is real. Its messaging is deeply rooted in our current times, and that's what was amazing about The Dark Knight as well. You're having a society of pure chaos, and you had somebody at the helm who was driving all of it, and just a wonderful film. All three of them: Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Of course, with I don't know if this made the film more popular, The Dark Knight, because of the passing of Heath Ledger, who portrayed the Joker. But it definitely did give it more flair, but it was an unbelievable performance. Even Jack Nicholson, supposedly it's been reported that Jack Nicholson, who played Batman in the Michael Keaton 1989 Batman, said to Heath Ledger, "Don't let it get to your head." Now, I don't know if there is a connection there that, in terms of portraying the Joker, that Heath Ledger went off the rails a little bit, but then it was reported that, he did pass away because of an overdose of sleeping pills. So, because, in the film television world, sometimes as a popular actor, you are overworked, and so sometimes it is hard to sleep. So, who knows? He knows. But anyway, great film. The entire trilogy. I really wish The Dark Knight was filmed completely on IMAX, like it almost was for The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises was filmed on 98% IMAX versus, I don't know the numbers for The Dark Knight, but it was partially filmed in IMAX. And there are some instances where you can view it in the big screen mode, being on Blu-ray disc, and I think certain streaming services allow it. And you can tell between the aspect ratios, it goes back and forth between going true widescreen, the 2.4 to 1 aspect ratio, versus the full 16:9. But it's just like 120 millimeter of IMAX versus 35 millimeter. It's a lot. It's a lot. But yeah, great trilogy. Absolutely loved it. Introduced a sense of realism through film again, so that it becomes more of a relatable story. It's not something that's just fantasy or unattainable, versus rather it's something that is relatable, and you really feel it, and you get more immersed in it. Again, I apologize for the stuttering that's happening. I don't know what's going on, but it's fine. Anyway, moving on, guys. Hey, just a real quick shout out to y'all. Again, thank y'all so much for watching and tuning in. I really appreciate every single one of y'all who are continuously supporting the channel by subscribing and liking the live streams and sharing it with your friends and family. Really means the world to me and us content creators. So really, really appreciate that. The Harishak, why are you glitching, bro? Why are you doing it? Stop it, please. Thank you. Moving on. The next trilogy I'd like to talk about, again, another one of my favorites, obviously, that's why I'm mentioning it, I'll take that back. The first film is really the favorite. The other two are just like, okay, yeah. And I'm talking about none other than the Matrix Trilogy. And the Matrix, groundbreaking in visual effects and filmmaking technique. The first one came out in 1999 with Matrix Reloaded in 2003, and then in the same year, because they were filmed back to back, the same year, Matrix Revolutions in 2003. And that, I think, is a unique release date, at least for sequels and in a franchise. So Matrix 1, 1999, Matrix 2 and 3 released in 2003. And then on top of that, we have a Matrix 4 that has been confirmed by sightings of Keanu Reeves and Carrie Ann Moss in San Francisco filming Matrix 4. So technically not a trilogy yet, but it will be. But still, one of my favorite of all time because original story, the message was pretty cool and unique in the first one. But then the second one, again, the typical trend of Hollywood sequels is that it's going to be bigger, it's going to be badder, and it's going to be amazing. But then the storyline, kaput. Nothing. Nada. And then that's what happened. So, number one was, how do I say this? It's always, the first that you don't know will become a franchise until later on, but it's always the first that is, sincere, full of heart, a great solid story, original cast, actually not necessarily, this is not an original cast, but a great group of people coming together that have never been sharing the screen before together. And it was just so genuine and unique. And then once it gets popular, then it's like, all right, let's put it in this Hollywood factory machine, and then it becomes exploited to become something else, and it becomes manufactured, and it becomes templated, and it's not the same, as a craft, as a filmmaker, your art is not the same. It becomes redundant and boring, right? It becomes not as exciting anymore. So the second one, Matrix 2 Reloaded, more action, definitely. A highway chase scene, or freeway, no, highway, I don't know, but still, like, it was more actiony, more use of bullet time through different sequences. The story did get deeper, exploring the world, of Zion and the like, whereas in the first one it was just briefly mentioned, and I think it was done on purpose, just so that, as an audience, you can fill your imagination with what it could be, and you start wanting to know more. And then naturally in the second one, they would explore that and show that, and it was unique. It was interesting to see that world, how the machines are taking over, and we enabled it. We did it to ourselves. They become smart, and then they start turning on us. You could say it's another form of, and this actually would be a nice segue to the Terminator, like Skynet, basically, where it becomes self-aware and it turns on the people who are behind creating it in the first place. And so, talking about Terminator, now you might be wondering, you might be thinking, well, there are 6 Terminator films. I agree. There's no dispute about that. 100% agree. There are 6 Terminator films. However, from my perspective, in my opinion, I think there are only 3 true Terminator films, and that's only because Terminator Dark Fate continues right after Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And the first 2 were by James Cameron, and then produced by James Cameron was Terminator Dark Fate. So, like, and the story continues from there. And the best part, after all that effort, after all that work, trying to keep the franchise alive, first, let's rewind a little bit. In Terminator, right, originally released in 1984. This is pre-computer technology, and, the first kind of, not necessarily the first, but I think it's one of the first uses of animatronics, right, dummies, for particular shots. I'm sure it's very noticeable, but for that time, it's like, wow, we have a Schwarzenegger look-alike prosthetic thing, and it's moving and things like that, just to give it the Terminator face. And then, with the success of that, it grew bigger and badder, but it held on to the integrity of the story being so solid and so sound, and it wasn't just another sequel. This was, of the trilogy, it is the most popular, right? Or of all the Terminator films, it is the most popular because it was so groundbreaking in other aspects as well. Visual effects, having full CG characters, being the T-1000 as liquid metal. A phenomenal film, a great story about, so many things, man. It's hard to talk about all the time, but it's just so much love and care, and the science behind it. It was just great. That's all I can say, is that it is a phenomenal franchise, a phenomenal series. And so that was 1984, then 1992, and then after the franchise was dying, 2003, Rise of the Machines. Let's make the Terminator a girl this time. Okay, interesting take. Complete flop at the box office because it just sucked, for lack of better words. I mean, the story was not solid enough. The actor portraying John Connor he didn't fit the role of John Connor, right? And I get that was part of the story, like, oh, he's supposed to be this great leader of the resistance, but then he didn't. So, but that actor, I don't think, was a great pick to play the part. So, not a huge fan, and I do not like that one. It was just another reason to get Schwarzenegger back on the screen after his place in office as the governor in California. He was the governor. And then Terminator 4, Salvation. This one I was actually excited to watch, and I was happy to watch because, again, this is, Christian Bale's high time. He just, did Batman, and so now it's like, oh, he's now doing John Connor. Okay, let's see this. And truth be told, I really did enjoy Terminator Salvation. They brought back Arnie, not in the flesh, but they did a complete CGI version, and it was almost believable. For 2009, it was almost believable, but there was just those few discrepancies that just made it fake. And also the problem is, the spoilers, the leaks, those came out before the film. If I did not see those images, those screenshots, I would have almost believed it was real. Almost. But, of course, no. You can't have... I mean, they did scan the 1984 cast of Arnold, so it was... And then they made it digital, so it was authentic, but it's just... lighting, man. You got to nail the lighting, and then it'll be 100%. And then after number 4 was Terminator Genesis. And this is where the twist that John Connor is now the bad guy, right? And what I liked about that one. I did enjoy that one as well. But what I really liked about it is that they were recreating shot for shot what happened in 1984, because that's, the storyline that, the timeline repeats, right? Or it's an alternate version. So they did stick true to, like, shot for shot what it was, and that Arnold completely CGI, but was very lifelike. Like, you could not tell that it was CGI. It was very real, photorealistic, I should say. Amazing CGI work there. Again, it was just like pushing the boundaries of the technology and how much more lifelike you can make it before you can tell that it's not real. But then comes Terminator Dark Fate and just completely dismisses 3, 4, and 5 and says, you know what? Screw all those movies, and we're going to pick up right after Terminator 2. What happened with John and Sarah when they escaped, when they escaped and they moved to, I think it was Puerto Rico or Costa Rica, one of those two locations, and what happens then? And then flash forward to the present, to 2019, and you have another Terminator-like person coming from... rather, she's not a Terminator. She's a genetically enhanced human to come back, and also they bring back Arnie to reprise his role as another Terminator, but he has been reprogrammed. Fantastic, phenomenal series. If y'all have not watched it, my condolences. Go watch it. Fantastic franchise, and that's why I believe the Terminator is a trilogy, because of Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Terminator Dark Fate. That is a complete full circle. And with that, moving on. Actually, let me get a quick break and sip some agua here. How are y'all doing? Y'all doing all right? Y'all doing good? Again, I appreciate all y'all watching and tuning in to Real Time, where we are live talking about film and television and everything in between. Give y'all selves a round of applause. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Y'all deserve it. Y'all are amazing. You're the best. All right. Next up on one of my favorite trilogies in cinema of all time is, and this is just, love from the heart. Right here. Jurassic Park. Now, I know y'all are going to say, it's an anthology. There's so many films, because it goes from 1993, 97, 2001, 2015, 2018, 2022. Yeah, but if you want to really go to the original trilogy, then it will stop at 2001. And that, is preceded by the first Jurassic Park, written by Michael Crichton and adapted to film by Steven Spielberg. And it was amazing. Literally. The love of dinosaurs, it was just this wave of dinosaurs growing up in the early 90s, from actually in the late 80s, starting with Land Before Time. Then you had Jurassic Park, and then you have We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, and so much more. The show Dinosaurs, from Jim Henson's company from Disney. They had a show running. Dinosaurs were the thing. It was the rave. And so they wanted to see it on the screen, and bam, there you go. Now, in 1993, ground freaking breaking again. And what I talked about this in an earlier live stream with the homies talking about Lord of the Rings, which we'll talk about later in this one. But basically, how in 1993 they made more photorealistic animal creatures than some CGI that comes out today. And that is just mind-boggling. Like in 1993, what was computing technology like? Right? This is before Pixar was established, right? It was part of ILM. So the whole George Lucas company and these guys and all these things are happening in the same era, all at once. A lot of moving parts, right? And so you have these guys at ILM who are redefining, the use of CGI in film and in movies. And it's just like, wow. Really, you believe on top of, using actual puppeteers, actual puppets and animatronics, right? On set, in camera, right? So it's real, it's tangible. On top of that, you have CGI animals and creatures to do certain, just particular things and for particular shots. And it's still believable. It's still more believable than things that are coming out in 2020. And it's just like, wow. Because they did it right. And it's because you as an audience, you want to believe that it's real. And even then, the majority of the shots, from what I understand, are 100% real. They were all, most of them all were animatronics. Then there were just a select few of shots that were completely CGI because they had to, because they were, lacking manpower to do the animatronics. But man, when you see the T-Rex on screen roaring like a Tyrannosaurus Rex should, wow, just phenomenal. Like, I have a hard time understanding, like, is this a horror? Is it a thriller? Is it an adventure film? I don't know. I don't know what genre Jurassic Park really falls into. Because it's, like, is it a monster movie? Is it not? Like, I don't know. It was just so great. Amazing. Jurassic Park. Then comes The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Part 2. That came out in 1997. Bigger, badder. Still a strong story. Dr. Grant is not around. And this is mainly focusing on Malcolm, Dr. Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum. Love the guy. And, man, where was I going with this? I really have no idea. But the point is that it was an amazing movie. And yes, it was bigger, it was badder, the story was phenomenal. And I like that there was a twist. Like, oh, while I was doing everything at Jurassic Park on one island, simultaneously, without telling you guys, John Hammond, the director of the park, right, is saying, I forgot the actor's name. He's a British actor. I don't know his name. Apologies for that. But he's explaining to Malcolm. Oh yeah, while I was doing all that on Jurassic Park, I was building a second one without telling you guys. Ha ha ha. And so then it becomes, okay, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to stop this? And then it just goes from there. And it was great. I do love that movie as well. A lot of, adventure, action, comedy, horror. Like, it was just all bundled in there. And then came 2001 Jurassic Park 3. It should have stopped at Lost World Jurassic Park 1997. But they just had to continue the story because they were running out of ideas. Yep. And that's what happened. And that's why you have a horrible script for Jurassic Park 3. Yeah, they made it big. They made it bad-ish. They brought Dr. Grant back. Alan Grant. But still did not hold the same weight as Jurassic Park 1, let alone Jurassic Park 2. Or Lost World Jurassic Park, I should say. So yeah, they had a talking velociraptor on the airplane in a dream sequence. That was just like, okay, this is weird. And then introducing the Spinosaurus, which was nothing to the actual Spinosaurus. Did not have a long snout. It did have the fin, so that was accurate, but no long snout. And then after 14 years, let's reboot Jurassic Park again. And this time we're going to call it Jurassic World. And we're going to expand on this. And we're going to see where it goes. So then 2005, Jurassic World with Chris Pratt. Jurassic World. I forgot this name of this one after that. 2018. And then also confirmed for 2022, Jurassic World Dominance. And I don't know how I feel about that. Pretty much, I mean, you can tell from my face, I'm just like, why? Is there anything, like, we're supposed to coexist with dinosaurs? That's the story? Dr. Malcolm said it best. God created dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Astaghfirullah al-azim. Man creates dinosaurs. And then, I forgot her name, says, dinosaurs eat man. Women inherit the earth. Go feminism! But, yeah. You get the gist. Like, enough. It was great. It's amazing. Great story. You know, you were intrigued. You were fascinated. I remember my dad telling me stories when I was so young. I was still little, watching Jurassic Park in the theater. And my dad goes, Mustafa, do you need to go to the bathroom? Mustafa, do you need to go to the bathroom? And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, it's a T-Rex. Like, it was so amazing to watch. Amazing. And scary. I remember having nightmares of the velociraptors because they just made him so freaking lizard-like. I mean, they are reptiles, but still. Great stuff. Great movie. Great trilogy as well. And then a second trilogy. Moving on. Actually, before we move on, real quick, water break. Alhamdulillah. Now, moving on. If y'all have any questions, if y'all have any comments, let me know and say what's up in the live chat, and I'll get to them as soon as I look over. Because we are live talking about film and television and everything in between, y'all. This is amazing. This is fun. I'm having a great time. Are y'all having a great time? Let me know. Moving on from that, we have one of the best, if not arguably the best trilogy of all time. Not my opinion per se. But Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Fellowship of the Ring came out in 2001. The Two Towers came out in 2002. And then Return of the King came out in 2003. Brilliant filmmaking. Brilliant films. The story. Never read the books from J.K. Rowling, but not Rowling. Sorry. Wow, that's Harry Potter. My apologies. Sorry. Tolkien. J.R. Tolkien. He made a language, Elvish, and then wrote a whole story using it. That would incorporate it, rather. And then you have Lord of the Rings. And my God, Cape Cod, it's so darn good. My favorite one of the trilogy, like I mentioned before on my previous live stream, if y'all are subscribed, you would know. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. The Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite because it was establishing everything, and it was a great place, to end things before, going to part 2 and then part 3. Part 3 was amazing as well, don't get me wrong, and the second one too. But for me, I just love the first one. Just the warmth of the Shire and the evil of, Sauron and all that stuff. Ibrahim, bro. Believe it or not, I have not watched a single Terminator movie. I need to start. Yeah, dude, you need to start. My brother Rahman. Yay, feminism. But I can't remember Dr. Sattler's name. Ugh. Sorry, y'all. Sorry. Anyway, let's see. We Lord of the Rings. We're back on talking about that. So what was phenomenal about Lord of the Rings? Yes, the story was just amazing. It was original. Having all these different mythical races coming together, from man, dwarves, hobbits, dragons, and tree beings. I don't know what they're called per se, and elves, of course. Like, it's just wizards and it's just amazing, right? All these Middle Earth creatures coming together, trolls. Amazing world that was created, and the way it was executed was just brilliant. Integrity of Peter Jackson. I personally am not familiar with his Islander. Sorry, Abdurrahman, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's fine. But basically, the way he executed, I mean, I haven't seen anything from Peter Jackson before Lord of the Rings. Oh, goodness. My slider over here done messed up. Or not messed up, but rather died. So let's fix that real quick and see how that goes. But anyway, man, I'm not going to be happy about this. I tried charging it. I swear I did. That's fine. I have the Lord of the Rings series. I really want to host a marathon of it once COVID calms down. Yes, for sure, bro. Ibrahim. And the Kapati bros. The guys that I had on my show before. Huge fans of Lord of the Rings. We should all do a marathon. It is amazing. But yeah, back to my thought. Peter Jackson, I did not know anything that he has done before Lord of the Rings. I think that was like his debut as a director, maybe. I don't know for sure. I haven't really looked into it. But the way he executed these films was to a new standard of filmmaking and collaboration and utilizing all forms of art and creativity coming together to make something as epic as Lord of the Rings as a franchise. You know, you had evolution of, techniques in filmmaking. So you're talking about, or not just evolution, rather new techniques being introduced, using miniatures and live sets and CGI and so much more, just all coming together. The wardrobes were fantastic. The music was just so amazing. The cinematography won so many freaking awards at the Academies because of just how much it just strove for excellence to tell these stories about friendship, about opportunity, about politics, about social norms that need to be changed. Like, it's, through the magic of filmmaking, talking about these cultural issues that we have been facing for generations to come. Like, it's just amazing stuff right there. But yeah, absolutely, Lord of the Rings, top notch, one of the best trilogies of all time. And then extension of that would be The Hobbit. Was not a fan. It was just really milking the cow. But they did do a great job with those. I just wasn't a huge fan as the original Lord of the Rings. Moving on from that, I need some more water, actually. Thank you, Abdurrahman. You had just mentioned something that I completely forgot about. Revolutionizing motion capture. Andy Serkis's performance as Smeagol and Gollum. Wow. The first one was done a particular way, but then because the technology got to catch up, then they started doing it the more modern way, and that was instrumental from using it in Lord of the Rings, the way they do motion capture, from body motion capture, but also facial motion capture to grab the expression of the actor so they, as an actor, can perform the part properly and then have that translated digitally to another character. Pioneers in that, and amazing. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you so much. All right, moving on, we have another huge favorite of mine. This is a really long list, man. Whew. But the next one is Back to the Future. And everybody loves Back to the Future. Starting with the original one in 1985, and then the sequel 4 years later in 1989, and then right after that, 1990, as the sequels 2 and 3 were being filmed back to back. Like literally, from what I understand, Robert Zemeckis was flying between the studios from post-production of part 2 to production of part 3. So that was happening a lot. But yes, the success of Back to the Future, another time-traveling series, but one of the best nonetheless. And in between the first and second, of course, Robert Zemeckis went ahead and did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, 1.21 gigawatts. But there's a famous meme that I will not say because I do not use profanity on this show or in real life for that matter. 1.21 give up. But yes, he went ahead and directed Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which won so many other awards because it was also groundbreaking to integrate 2D animation in live action worlds. So that was also phenomenal, and the story was amazing and so on. But we're not talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, we're talking about Back to the Future. And using an old car, right, as iconic as the DeLorean, and souping it up to be a time traveling machine, and just a great franchise. If you want to have a great adventure, you want to talk about family dynamic, you want to talk about history, that is the films to watch. Back to the Future, great movie, loved it so much. I'm gonna kind of go by these next ones because my throat is starting to give out. I'm talking too much, man, but we are on a talk show, so there you go. Well, actually, real quick about Back to the Future, it was also utilizing ILM, of course, and they also, actually, it was because of Back to the Future, they pioneered, I forgot the name of the, oh man, I'm bad, the Libyans! They did pioneer, ILM had pioneered in Back to the Future 2 a camera that allowed you to have playback and control the camera settings and camera movement to be repeated infinitely. What we call today a robot cam, but back then it was something that has never been done before, and only because to serve the story. The story being that Michael J. Fox as an actor is portraying himself in the future, being 30 years older, his daughter, and his son at the same time in the same scene. And so they had to pioneer a camera that can do that over and over. And then on top of that, make sure everything is perfectly set. What we call today the clone effect is what they invented, basically. Of course, this effect has been done literally 100 years ago, not hundreds, 100 years ago. I forgot the actor's name, but he, in his films, would do basically the clone effect, where on one side of the gauge you cover it up and you film, and then you reverse it and then cover the other side and then film again, and then you process the film together, and then that's it. Or rather, you rewind the original film and then record one more time. And that's how you have it printed on film, the two clones. So that was interesting, how they came up with that, how they invented that from even 100 years ago when this technology wasn't available or just an idea. But then it became more believable when you have a moving camera and they are interacting with, certain objects, where they're being, pouring a drink in a cup, or shaking hands, or moving plates. And this particular camera system also had metal rods and motors attached to it, so that in case there were certain objects that need to be moved, it would be timed with it as well. An example of that is in Back to the Future 3, when Marty meets his great-grandfather, or great-great-great-grandfather, I can't remember, but basically they're in the same table, and it's played by Michael J. sibling, I'll just say, the older relative, hands Marty the plate, and it's in the same grip, everything is perfected, and it's just seamless, like they are interacting, and it just makes it believable. That is movie magic, again, to tell the story. There are obviously some discrepancies where you can tell that it is a two-shot because the lighting isn't exact, right? And some things just look a little off, be it coloring or some things are loose. There is one mistake if you pay attention in Back to the Future 2 when Doc accidentally runs into his older self from 1955 when he's when he's trying to do the configuration for, attaching the line to the clock tower for the lightning to hit. There's that one shot where the camera rack focuses between the present Doc who came to 1955 and then the Doc in 1955, and he's interacting with himself, and there's that light post that's right in the middle that is kind of like the dividing line, but basically there is a little mistake where it goes back to the older Doc and the camera shakes just ever so slightly. You just see a little bump. And I saw in the final cut, and I was just watching it recently actually, and I was just like, wait. Why did they leave that in? Did they not know that it shook and it was messed up? Maybe for the remastering, the 4K, they fixed that. I don't know for sure. But definitely just the idea that they innovated that for the film. And it was, I don't know if it was used after that, to be honest, but of course a practical way to do the clone effect is if you yourself had a twin, identical twin, that is, not any twin, but an identical twin, and you can do the clone effect. But we now have the technology as well. I mean, you can use a remote robot motion controlled slider, and it does the exact same thing, where you can repeat the move infinitely over and over, and you can have the same actor in two different spots at the same time playing two different characters. And maybe in the future I might do that in a future film. Just subscribe and stay tuned for that. I'm very curious to try that out. Another thing with Back to the Future, I mean, we learned that, history repeats itself, and so that's why, it does get a little redundant that the same story kind of happens all throughout all three films. The first one taking place in the past, 1955, and then the second one taking in the future of 2015, also repeating, and then in the third one taking place in 1885 in the Old West. But history repeats itself, right? Like it's destiny, like it's supposed to. Like we're trying to avoid history repeating itself, but it always ends up happening, right? Because we never learn. So that's a great lesson to learn from that. Another great thing was, the use of miniatures and real life action in the same shot, right? Using motion control. So there is that one shot in Back to the Future 2 where the DeLorean is coming through from flying, and then it goes right past that pole and it lands onto the street. So the way they did that is that in the original take, the car is on some sort of beam to be lifted a little bit and then just rolling straight, and then past that point in the shot it lands and it continues on. And then what they did a clean plate, overlaid that, and then they did a miniature of the car flying in on a blue screen, and then they used the same camera movement, and then they just seamlessly matched it, and it's beautiful. Like that is amazing stuff right there, and that was innovative through these films. Apologies for any extra noise. It is quite windy right now. It was kind of windy all day today, to be honest. A great trilogy. Y'all definitely need to watch that if y'all have not. Moving on. Now this one I wasn't even born when the first two films came out. But one of, I think, the greatest trilogies of all time were the Godfather trilogies. Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Part 1 coming out in 1972. I wasn't even an idea. And then 1974. And then 1990. So all these films came out before I was born. But to be honest, I have to refresh my memory by watching them again. I have not watched them in so long because I just haven't. But I know they are quite gory, and they are rated R for a reason. But definitely a landmark in cinema history, as being a great story about loyalty and compassion and family and friendship, and even though it's all about underground gangsters. But still, nonetheless, great story. And then, the rise to power and what you do with that power. And do you abuse it? Do you use it properly? The list goes on. That's all I really got to say about The Godfather. I'm just trying to go through these next few as quickly as I can. The next trilogy is The Men in Black. Popularly, I don't know if that's even a word. I'm losing my mind right now. The first one came out in 1997, and it is a Marvel movie, believe it or not. Or was it DC? It was Marvel, sorry. It is a Marvel movie in 1997, talking about aliens crash landing on our planet. An original story. Will Smith, his popularity, on the rise, starting with, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and then being a rapper, and then, entering the movie business, the film industry, I don't know the word, playing alongside Tommy Lee Jones. Great films. Yes, I know that they came out with a fourth one as well, or yes, it was Men in Black International, but it's not with Will Smith. Wow, I am really losing it. It is not with Will Smith or Tommy Lee Jones, so that's why I don't kind of count it. But still, a great original story, and it was just phenomenal. And then on top of that, Independence Day came out as well, so that was just like really pushing Will Smith's popularity on the rise. So the first one came out in 1997. The second one came out in 2002. The third one, 10 years later, 2012. And they got Josh Brolin to play a young Tommy Lee Jones. Again, following the typical Hollywood sequel framework. First one's amazing. Second one, bigger, badder. Not great of a story. Did happen. Third one, kaput, it was not that great. But yeah. Oh, you are right, Abdurrahman. MIB was actually a comic first. So it is one of the original comic book films before becoming a movie. So great movie. Absolutely love the trilogy. Check it out if y'all have not. Moving on. We're almost done here, people. Again, thank y'all so much for tuning in and subscribing if y'all have not already, and liking this live stream and sharing it with others who enjoy trilogies of cinema. The next one is one of my favorite of all time, and of course that is presented behind me with the four brothers and their arch nemesis, TMNT, ladies and gentlemen, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trilogy. Now, of course, I love the first one the most. The second one was pretty good, very bubbly for children. The third one was a mistake. But then they tried to reboot it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again in 2014, and then the second one, sequel to that, in 2016, TMNT Out of the Shadows. But let's just ignore those guys and just talk about the first one, really, because it was groundbreaking, using animatronic using animatronics with actors in the suits, right, to control the eyes and the facial expressions and the mouth. But you had people inside who were using the suit to do the performance, and it was just incredible. As the first film, it was, I believe, the most highly grossed film, independent film that is, of all time. And because it was just on this wave of popularity, being the comic originally, and then getting turned into a cartoon, and then a motion picture, and then the motion picture was too much, so then they wanted to continue it, but they had to make it more kid-friendly, so then they made it more bubbly. They made the character designs more cartoon-ish, yeah. Still a great movie. First one, I think, captivated the original intent of the Turtles being very dark themed, and that's why there is that crossover when they have that collab with Batman, because it's in the same genre of being dark and thematic like that. And as an adult, I appreciate the original film more. As a kid, I loved the second one more because it was more kid appropriate, I think. But the first one, I have much more appreciation for now as an adult, because I understand, the darkness of it, the depth of it. Fantastic, phenomenal trilogy, in my opinion, of all time. Next, we're almost done here, people. Next, we have, and I know I might get some hate for this, but Toby Mcguire's Spider-Man trilogy. Now, I absolutely hate the third one. Don't get me wrong. But I believe the first one was just great. The first one came out in 2002. Then you had Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock. Great film. Came out in 2004. And then you had Spider-Man 3 coming out in 2007. When Venom was not the main villain, but you had Sandman as the main villain instead. I don't know what they were thinking. But yeah, Spider-Man, one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. He is back there behind me. You can barely tell, but he is there with the black suit as well. The original suit and the black suit. I feel that the suit in the first film was the best looking one to be translated into a realistic approach. I think it was a great costume, wardrobe, my opinion. But yeah, great film. Love the adventure of it, the action of it, the story of it. And it was great. It was just pure entertainment, and it was amazing. That's all we needed. And then of course, recently there have been talks and confirmations that. With the reboots of Spider-Man, you had the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, and then the recent Spider-Man with Tom Holland showing up in the Marvel Universe, MCU. And with his third movie coming out, I don't know if it's still rumored or if it's confirmed just yet, but there is going to be multiverse happening, a Spider-Man multiverse, with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield supposedly coming back to reprise their roles as Spider-Man from their universes. Alfred, what is his name? The actor who played Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire has been confirmed that he will be showing up, and as well as Jamie Foxx as Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, supposedly is in that one that's coming up. So again, rumors, not 100% confirmed just yet. So we are looking out for that. And that would be amazing just to see the crossover happen between all three different Spider-Mans and their respective villains. Quick tangent though, Venom with Tom Hardy, excellent, amazing. First time you see a real Venom. No offense to the other guy from That 70s Show who played Venom in Spider-Man 3, was not Venom at all. At all. Period. Okay. But yeah, amazing trilogy. Definitely would recommend it. Lastly on my list, Man. Are y'all having a good time? Let me know in the live chat. Last one. And this is just, again, I have to reiterate, there are lots of trilogies out there. And some I am going to be doing some honorable mentions at the end, so stay tuned for that. But I just want to say that there are a lot of trilogies out there, and it's hard to keep up sometimes with so many things being put out all the time. And it's like, when do you have the time to watch anything anymore, you know? So forgive me if I didn't mention anything, but, you know, let me know, what is your favorite trilogy that I might not have mentioned in this episode of Real Time, where we are live talking about film and television and everything in between. So, the last trilogy that I love, in my opinion, of all time in cinema history, The Planet of the Apes, and I'm talking about the recent trilogy, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and lastly, War on the Planet of the Apes. To be honest, I have not watched War on the Planet of the Apes. I just know that it is phenomenal and it's fantastic. Just based on watching the first two, Rise coming out in 2011, and then Dawn coming out in 2014. Just because Andy Serkis again is pioneering again. He found his niche in acting, which is motion capture, and just delivering an unbelievable performance that's just incredible to portray Caesar. It's just amazing, just phenomenal. I cannot wait to watch War and get the shivers. I'm looking forward to that very much. And let's just not talk about Planet of the Apes with Mark Wahlberg, directed by Tim Burton. A great effort, a lot of effort, but was not Tim Burton's forte. Tim Burton has a style. You know, it's like a modern noir thing. Let him stick to that. Everybody has their niche. Let him stick to that niche. But yeah, absolutely amazing storytelling and amazing stories to be told. And, the advancement of technology and CGI have made things possible where you think characters are just so darn believable. You think that they are there, they're real, but at the end of the day, they're not. But still, as an audience, like, you get immersed, you believe them. You believe it, and it's so amazing, right? So definitely would recommend those. And I consider one of the best trilogies of all time in our cinema history. Now I'm going to go into the honorable mentions. And these technically have more than 3, so they aren't trilogies, but still. I did mention it yesterday. Toy Story, a great series. Love the film. There's so much that I did want to talk about, but I didn't have my notes, so slipped my mind. But nonetheless, a great trilogy. With the exception of number 4, because it was just like really pushing it too much. Lethal Weapon. God, I love Lethal Weapon with, the buddy cop movies. We have Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. Fantastic films. It's just so good, man. So good. As a kid, you watch these things and you're like, wow, okay, that's awesome. But then as an adult, when you watch them, it just means so much more because you finally understand it and on a deeper level. And it's just like, oh, wow, I relate to it now. Before it was just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Don't understand what's going on, but that's cool. But yeah, Lethal Weapon. They did have a 4th one as well. So, and then they made a TV show. It's not the same. It lost its integrity, The next one, Die Hard. I know there are more than 3. I think it was 4, maybe even 5. I can't remember. But Die Hard, great movies. I'm going to talk about it more this upcoming Friday, so make sure you are tuned in for that. And then lastly, drum roll please. Indiana Jones. They say, you know, the joke, what theme song has the most D's? Indiana Jones. Da 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 da. They say 37 D's. It's just a joke. But yeah, Indiana Jones for the longest time had a trilogy, and then they were just, again, Hollywood running out of ideas. Let's do another movie and let's bring in the Nazis. And then you had the fourth one with Shia LaBeouf in it. Hollywood was just running out of ideas, bro. And then just trying to do some more branching out in the franchises. But yeah, that is my compiled list of what I believe are the best trilogies in cinema history. And I don't know what else to say really, but they are just amazing. They all were originally not going to be trilogies at one point, right? They all came up with their original scripts, and because of the success of the first one, they just grew to be, you know, to extend that universe to a second, and then the third, and then sometimes even more. And these are great stories to be told, and, you know, so much that you learn, you know, about humanity through different mediums, and film is just one of them. And, you know, you learn through all these different stories, and I love it so much, so much. All these films, from the bottom of my heart, they're just amazing to watch, and I'm glad that they do exist in our world. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream of Real Time, where we are live talking about film and television and everything in between. If y'all enjoyed it, please give this live stream a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you hit that post notification down below, and I will see y'all in the next one. This is Mustafa Talib with Cinema King Productions, signing out. Peace.